With only 3 airlines worldwide operating the 747-8 passenger version, this aircraft is by definition a rarity, so that alone is reason enough to take a closer look at it. And with that, hello and welcome to a new episode of Review, where we, as mentioned, will take a closer look at a Boeing 747-8 of Air China. At the front of the box we have a cutout so we can get a glimpse of the aircraft model inside, and on top of the box we have the Air China branding. The backside of the box then offers us a lovely image of the aircraft in real life, and we are provided with a web link by Herpa Wings where we supposedly can get more information about the aircraft model. This web link does, however, not work anymore. And here she is, the Boeing 747-8 in the current standard livery of Air China. And before I hear you already typing your comments, yes, of course, there are more than 3 passenger airlines having this aircraft type in their fleet, but there are only 3 passenger carrying airlines, and that's Lufthansa, Korean Air, and Air China, that are actually using them in their irregular PAX carrying traffic. The 4th passenger airline is Qatar Airways, but they only use it as VIP aircraft. Long story short, the 747-8 passenger version is a rather rare aircraft. And how has Herpa managed to recreate it in Scale 500? There's only one way to find out, by taking a closer look at it. And we start out with the vertical stabilizer, where we find the Air China branding. On the fuselage we then find the aircraft type specification and the registration code, which is important here because one of the 7 747-8 aircraft in the Air China fleet is actually the VIP or presidential aircraft. That is, however, registered as Bravo 2479, so here we have a normal passenger carrying 747-8. And towards the very tail of the aircraft we then also have a bit of detailing around the APU exhaust. At the front of the aircraft and across the fuselage we then have a bunch of detailing when we focus on the livery, because Herpa hasn't really added much detailing that is aircraft type specific. So let's see what we have here. Well, of course we have the Chinese flag and the writing of Air China in English and also in Mandarin Chinese. Then we also find a Star Alliance logo, of which Air China is a full member. And then we start to struggle. Now, for more detailing, we now need to move on to the cockpit section. Here we can find the cockpit windows with the window wipers. And above the cockpit we also have the emergency hatch for the cockpit printed on. So while there is not an overwhelming amount of printed details here, I think Herpa does rather well when it comes to recreating the rather iconic shape of the 747, especially around the cockpit section. If we then move on to the engine nacelles, we can see they have perhaps not been kept in the same grey tone as we find on the belly, and I think they should be, but I think Herpa maybe messed up a little bit here. But we do have the silver leading edge printed on. That is, however, again, the only printed detail we will find here. Where Herpa is doing rather well, however, is with the physical detailing, especially with the chevron nozzles, and also from the front, the engine fan blades. On the fuselage, just above the wings, we then find the emergency exit has been printed on, and that leads us straight to the wings, which we should also take a closer look at, starting off with the top side, where we on one side find Air China written on, and then on the other side we have the full registration code written on. Then, of course, we also have the flaps, slats and spoilers carved out, but that's about it for the top side of the wing. The underside of the wing, then again, on one side with the Air China writing, and on the other side the full registration code, and a little bit more physical detailing. The landing gear itself, that is the standard landing gear that Herpa uses for all their 747-8 aircraft, and compared to the 747-400, which has metal landing gear, this is made out of plastic. Overall it looks rather decent if you ask me, but we are missing some printed details around the front landing gear. And then last but not least, we do also have the doors to the cargo compartments printed on here at the back of the aircraft, and also here at the front of the aircraft. So there we have it, the Boeing 747-8 in the current standard livery of Air China from Herpa Wings in scale 1 to 500. And what can we say about this aircraft model? I mean, the lack of details that are aircraft type specific is almost painful, but we have to consider that this aircraft model was produced by Herpa Wings back in 2015, and that was simply the standard back in the day. Where Herpa is doing rather well is overall with the print quality itself. That is of a very high standard, and they have executed the Air China livery, I think, overall pretty well. Where Herpa could have improved would have been around the engine nacelles, because currently the color of the nacelles doesn't quite match up with that of the belly of the aircraft, which it should. Although the difference is not huge, so I think most collectors could live with it as it is. But if Herpa hadn't just colored in the plastic, but actually had added a layer of paint around the plastic, I think it would have been easier for them to match up the colors from the fuselage and the nacelles. When it then comes to the physical detailing, I mean, yeah, there's not much to be said. Herpa does a solid job recreating the 747. So is this aircraft model worth having in one's collection? I mean, yes and no. I mean, obviously, you will have to be able to live with basically no details whatsoever. On the other hand, if you want a 747-8 passenger versions, there aren't many options out there. If you don't want to have a Lufthansa and can't get your hands on a Korean Air, then this is your best option. Now with that, we have reached the end of today's episode. If you have enjoyed this video, then don't forget to leave a like. And of course, if you are new around here, why not hit subscribe? With that, thank you very much for watching. Hope to see you soon again. I'm checking out, and bye.